morning, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. Another beautiful day in Lake Havasu City. Certainly this outside venue seems to be working a lot better than the last one. It was just a little noisy. As always, lots of things going on. Don't have anything in particular that I want to talk about, but just going back and looking at some of the projects that we have. As you can see across the street, this independent living facility is moving quite quickly. Already putting sticks up. They've got iron going up. It's going to be a great project. Havasu Riviera continues to move forward. I keep hearing that they're going to open up in October. I hope that is the case. And then the hotel, the Holiday Inn Express, we've been told that they still plan to open around the July 4th weekend. It does look like there's a lot of work to do to me, but I guess, when you get toward the end, it goes pretty quickly. The other thing that you've probably noticed is that the Hampton Inn has had a significant makeover. It looks gorgeous. It really looks very, very nice. And in conjunction with that, our economic development group met with them about the backside of the buildings that the Hampton Inn faces. So it'd be the Chamber of Commerce, Hospice, several other those buildings. And they've repainted them all and put murals on them. So you look out the window, it looks great. So that's just cooperation with a private owner of a hotel and this public agency, the Economic Development Group, and then you get the nonprofits. It was funny because they told us that once they got started on one building, everybody went, man, that's a great idea. I ought to do that with my building. So the whole block is now, they call it color block, and it looks really, really nice. Cypress Park, the kids are enjoying it. We've already had soccer tournaments there, and so people really have loved how that park came out. The last couple of weeks, what we've been working on are budgets. And while we, as I've said in the past, we have reserves, we're good to go in that way. We are not good to go when it comes to the expenditure limitation. We are right up against it. Our budget this year is fully funded. We don't have an issue there, but it literally is, there's hardly any wiggle room between the state mandated expenditure limitation and our budget. Our budget is balanced. Again, not an issue. In fact, this past year we'll have excess revenues versus expenditures, but it's quite difficult because this expenditure limitation is just not keeping pace with the needs of this community. A lot of our discussion yesterday was that we had to remove certain expenditures from public safety. Our police and fire training budgets we had to reduce. Several other things, supplies, etc., just so that we could get under this darn state law. So, it is real. I still get people out there thinking that really all we want to do is spend more money. No, we just like to be able to spend the money that we have, keep public safety at a premium, because we're always told that that's the number one priority. But when, here you are with money in the bank, and you got to work with, Jess has to work with the police and fire chiefs of reducing their budgets. And then we go to all the other departments as well. You got to reduce your budgets because we're going to exceed this goofy state law, which is why Prop 409 is going to be so key in August. That's the name of the proposition, where we're asking Lake Havasu City voters, and David's going to pass out some information. We're asking the Lake Havasu City voters to adjust the original base amount that our budgets are based on. Again, as you recall, this law was passed by the state early, June, I think, of '80, and this was due to a voter initiative. And we were incorporated in 1978. Back then, we didn't have any parks. We hardly had a police department. Our water, we had no water treatment facility. We literally took the water out of the wells, put some chlorine in it, and off to the tap it went. Today we have a water treatment facility. We treat our sewer, water. All of those things are impactful, and our growth, the calculations to expand our base have not kept up with our growth. And one of the reasons why is that we probably have 20 to 25% what I call winter and summer visitors that have homes here, etc. Those people do not count for our growth, but yet we've got to serve them. So when you add inflation and our year-round population growth, it doesn't keep pace with the expenditures necessary just to make sure our parks are in good shape, police and fire have their training budgets, etc., and water and sewer are treated properly. One other thing I'll throw at you, and it gets a little more technical. One of the expenditures that right now does not count is our water fund, because it is under a provision called the Irrigation and Drainage District. It's a tax that you actually have on your property tax bill, and when we were incorporated, the voters agreed to dissolve that once all debt had been paid off. Well, that will occur in about 4 years, 3 to 4 years. So there's $15 million roughly of expenditures to treat water, deliver water to you, that will now count against us on the expenditure limitation. And let me try to explain how severe that is. This year, we're going to be under the expenditure limitation by about $500,000. But if we have to add the water fund of 15 and we don't get Prop 409 passed, we've got to make some drastic decisions. And as I've said before, that under this state law, it does allow cities and towns to borrow money, but that's just foolish to borrow money to run your water department. I mean, that's just foolish, and we don't want to do that. We don't mind if we have a very long-term project that's going to serve the community for decades to borrow money on that. That makes good financial sense. That's what corporations do. But to borrow for operations, it's never a good idea. I mean, I always think about it, why would you borrow money to pay your payroll? That's a no-win situation, absolutely a no-win situation. So tell your friends about Prop 409, how important it is. Where did David go? Oh, there he is. David Lane did some research, Councilmember David Lane, about the expenditure limitation. And many of the states, back in about the same time Arizona was doing something, did put in an expenditure limitation, and in some cases have reversed it because the unintended consequences have been horrible. And there's really two kinds of limitations. One of them's a revenue limitation, the other one's expenditure limitation. Revenue is like the Prop 13 in California, where your property taxes could only go up so much as long as you hadn't sold that home. In Arizona, they took the other route, expenditure limitation, which kind of goofy if you think about it. It means that there's no limit on taxes. You just get limited on the expenditures. Unless, of course, you run out and borrow the money, because that law says that's okay to do. So we're really trying to just allow our budgeting to be under the control of all of you folks. We don't think the state of Arizona should tell us how to budget our revenues that we have. We believe that it should be up to you. One last thing I'll remind you of is that if we go over that limitation, every year we go over, the penalty is roughly $2.5 million that we have to write a check to the state, and they turn around and give it to other cities and towns in Arizona. You may be wondering, well, why don't they have a problem? They do. There's 91 cities and towns in Arizona. 77 of them have either changed their permanent base, which is what we're trying to do, or made other adjustments that's referred to as home rule. Kingman is a good example. Kingman uses the home rule provision, which basically means I'm going to go to the voters every 4 years and ask them to take out certain expenditures so that it doesn't count against us. And what they do is they go to the voters every 4 years and say, would it be okay when it comes to calculating our expenditures that we do not count water, sewer, and trash? We could do that, but we just felt it was better to go to the voters on a one-time basis, fix it forever, and move forward. So that's what we plan to do. Not to mention, right now the water doesn't count against us anyway, so it wouldn't help very much. So let people know that if they like the way the city is going, they like to have public safety as their number one priority, that Prop 409 should be a yes. It does not in any way change taxes. If you vote yes, taxes do not go up. If you vote no, taxes do not go down. There is no impact. This has nothing to do. It is not a revenue limitation. It is an expenditure limitation. And it will still exist. We will still have an expenditure limitation, but it will be more patterned for the city that we have today as opposed to the city we had in 1980. As I said, in 1980, 0 parks. Today we have, I believe it's 15, although in some cases I've heard 17. So I guess it depends on which park you call a park. But still, it's a huge difference. One of the projects that we are definitely putting off a little while until we see what happens is the improvements to Sarah Park. So until we know what happens to Proposition 409, we really can't plan to do any additional significant expenditures. If it does pass, by the way, it goes into effect July 1 of 2019. So that's why I said that the city manager and the finance director came to the council with the budget for this fiscal year, the fiscal year ended June 30, 2019, so that it was fully funded but under the expenditure limitation. Because regardless of what happens in August 28th, we are still under that same expenditure limitation until next July 1. One last comment, and then we'll move on. My car is all packed up. I'm headed to London on Sunday with Councilmember McCoy and her husband and my wife, and then John Parrott and his wife to meet with the people who staff the office of the Lord Mayor of London. He will be here in October. So we're going back kind of as a reciprocal trip, and so we're excited about going over there. I've been to London many times. My wife has never actually been out of the country other than Bermuda, so she's really excited about it. We hope to have a huge celebration when he's here in October. I personally invited the governor just the other day, and the governor wanted to go on the trip with us, but I said, well, we're paying for it ourselves, so you go right ahead. But he was pretty thrilled about it. We're really hopeful that he will come. We're also hopeful that the new state park will open up that same weekend, and so we can have the Lord Mayor cut the ribbon or do whatever. So we're looking forward to the trip. It should be a lot of fun. John Pear and I are receiving what they call the Freedom of the City honor, and that goes back to about 800 years, and so that's another thing that we're pretty excited about. So with that, let's open it up for questions. Chuck.
Can you expand on how bad that 409 would, if it doesn't pass, how Parker had been over the limits and they got a $2 million fine, and our legislator, Regina Cobb, got it passed through the legislature, and our governor decided to veto it?
Correct. Yeah, the fact is, the La Paz County actually went over the limit, and they were penalized. There's very little chance that a bill saying, oh, it's okay that you went over the limit is going to pass. And I can understand why, because there's provisions within the law to fix it, and that's what we're trying to do with Prop 409. And, quite honestly, Chuck, one of the things I don't want to do is have to that would be a bill that it seems to me you'd be going back pretty much every year or every few years. I'd rather just fix it once and move forward.
Well, I think what I understood it was because Parker didn't understand that they were going over, and that it was just a bill to forgive them the fine.
Oh, well.
And that was it. It didn't change the law or anything else. It just forgive them the fine for that, and then they would have to come under the limits from then on.
Yeah, well,
$2 million to La Paz County, because there's not a whole lot there.
There's not a whole lot there.
And that is a lot of money.
But we know what our expenditure limitation is, and don't get me wrong, it is a very long and complicated calculation. Some things count, some things don't. Then you multiply. You have to go to the, what is it, David, the Arizona Estimation Commission, or
the Economic Estimates Commission.
Economics Estimate Commission, and then they tell you exactly what factors to use for both inflation and population growth, and it's got to be improved. Then you have to have your auditors look at the calculation. They have to opine on it. It's complicated, and we'd like to just put that thing behind us. Yes? Okay, yeah, I'm a little constrained by cameras, so, but I don't. Are there more? We can get you some more chairs to come up as well, but I'll try to talk as loud as I can.
All right.
Yes, sir.
Mayor, Body Beach. Now that we've spent, I'm assuming, quite a bit of money on cleaning up the area and the camps for the homeless that were living there, I assume have been cleaned up. Mm-hmm. And I've heard that we're trying to purchase some of the property. Mm-hmm. What is our goal now that we've cleaned the property? Is the city going to go back in and continually keep it clean now? And are we going to allow people to come back there and camp? And an update on the property.
Right. Okay, the question was about Body Beach and what we're doing in that regard. We did go in, and after the campfire burn, we'll just call it. The city got permission from state lands to go in and clean that whole area out. It took us a while to get that permission. By the way, there are chairs up here too. Because even though we had a lease on that property, contained in the lease was provisions that pretty much we can't remove a bush or a stone or anything without written permission. And we're finally able to get it. We finally got it because I made a call to the director and said, come on. What was interesting is Jess will tell you as well, after I was able to get permission from the director, she said, well, we've got property that extends beyond your lease, and we would sure like the city to bulldoze that area too. And so we will over time. Right now, the reason, and you're going to really love this one of the reasons we're not bulldozing it right now is because there are fire restrictions. Because the best way for us to get it done would be to have a controlled burn.
Yeah.
And then take it out. Apparently there was a controlled, not so controlled burn on the first 16 acres. So, but yes, we do plan to keep that area cleaned out. We aren't planning to buy the whole 16 acres, just 9 acres. So we're planning to buy 9 acres. It goes up for auction. It isn't something where we go to them and say, okay, we'd like to buy it, here's a check. They have to put it up for auction. But the area we want is right connected to Rotary. We actually have a parking lot on a piece of it, and then it goes back toward Piccadilly Point. But we're gonna try to buy 9. But for right now, yes, we want to keep that area clean, and as soon as practicable, we'd like to clean out the area that state lands has said they're good with us cleaning. They've only given us till September, so we're not sure how that's going to work with fire restrictions. Our fire chief, I believe, is trying to figure out if there's some exceptions. I mean, I personally don't know what the big deal about it is, because on one side is, I mean, you've got the lake. Where's the fire going to go, quite honestly? And for the most part, it's just gravel and dirt and some bushes. But it would be a lot simpler if we could do the burn first and then do it, because otherwise you're talking about, how many tons have we already taken out?
For about 2 weeks straight, we were doing about 200 tons, more than 200 tons a day. So you can do the math pretty quickly. It's thousands of tons of debris that was taken out of there, and that's with the burnt brush as opposed to the
Right.
clean vegetation.
And the issue with camping and access for the jet skiers to use that area again?
They'll be able to, the jet skiers can use that. The reason we wanted it pretty much taken down to the ground, and then are we still planning to put topsoil?
Yeah, we cleaned out some area, then put in a little bit of soil just to get some of the debris and ugliness out of that area. So that'll help out the area. Well, I was just down there yesterday, or 2 days ago, sorry, and so the jet skiers were out there and enjoying that area, so that was nice to see. One of the things we're also doing moving forward is we've done a lot of the big, heavy, the work with the heavy equipment and so forth. So we're working with Judge Kalali in the courts. So if those that are sentenced to community service, we're going to have a couple days a month where we're going to bring some of those folks down and clean up some of the smaller trash and continue to clean up the area and keep it beautiful. So we're doing pretty well in that regard. So if you haven't been down there, take a look at it. You'll see that when you get down there, there's some restrictions as far as what we can do immediately on the beach area for drainage and keeping the quality of the river in pristine condition. But go down there and take a look at it. It's a nice area now.
Are you going to allow camping?
No. No, and frankly, the camps that you were referring to, only want to be there when they're concealed by brush. Now there's no
The brush is not coming back.
and the brush is not. Well, it can, but we're trying to keep it away. Yeah,
Thank you.
Jeff.
How would that purchase of that land affect the spending on the city?
It will impact the spending limit. Yeah, because the purchase of land counts against us on the expenditure limitation. So if 409 does not pass, we can't buy that. I mean, we really need to buy it. I guess the way we could do it is borrow. Prefer not to do it that way, but we could do it that way. But then now you got the cost of land and the cost of borrowing. So
Is there a limitation on what you're going to spend for the land?
is there the
I mean, is there a cap or something that said?
here's how it works with Arizona State Trust lands. They are required to sell any of the Arizona State lands at a price that is equal to the highest and best use. So it could be zoned for public purposes, but the price of it will be as if it was zoned for the highest and best use, whether that be residential or commercial. So that's how it works, and then the highest bidder gets it. Yes, ma'am.
I'm concerned about the homeless. I don't know whether you've discussed it before, but I came today because I want to know what your policies are on the homeless people.
I don't know that we have a policy, so I'm not sure what you're asking.
What I want to know is, why is it that people were allowed to have a campsite, defecating on our beaches, and leaving their trash, and then having a fire in the city limits of Havasu?
Mhm.
I mean, I understand there's people homeless, but I came from California, and I don't want to have another California
Sure.
in Havasu.
Well, we don't have a policy. I mean, I've heard all kinds of different solutions, as I'm told. I've heard as much as gather them all up, put them on a bus, and send them to wherever. Well, we have a United States Constitution that we're going to abide by, so we're not going to be doing that. So then the other question is, well, why don't you go in and break up those camps? So you do. So you go in and you cite each and every one of them, and then they don't pay their fines. So what do we have to do? Got to issue a warrant. Then we go down there and find them, and then we got to do what? Arrest them and put them in the jail. And now you know what the jail's called? A homeless shelter.
They're home.
A homeless shelter that you're paying for. You're paying for.
Yeah, but aren't we really paying for them anyway? Everybody's giving them tents, sleeping bags.
Well, we're not giving them.
That's encouraging them.
There are groups that do distribute food, tents, etc. The city is not one of those. But the point of the matter is that there is no easy solution. If there was, Lake Havasu City isn't the only place that has homeless camps. They're throughout America, and nobody has been able to figure out exactly what to do. Now, for those homeless that are looking for help, there are services here to get them back on their feet. We've used our Veterans Treatment Court to get, I believe it's 8 of our homeless veterans sheltered, back on their feet, out of the court system, productive members of the society. There are some, however, that really don't want help. They choose to live there. I'm thinking of a situation where we were told that it was a spouse that was down in the camp. The husband works at a local restaurant as a chef. They don't want a house.
Well,
But by clearing the brush, they're not going to be there anymore.
Why can't we, if they want to live like that, they can live outside of town.
They could, but are you going to force them to do that against their
Well,
their?
I just don't feel like there has to be some kind of solution where we don't become a California.
I'm open to those solutions. I'm absolutely open to those solutions that don't violate constitutional rights, because if that occurs, you're really going to be paying for it, because they're going to sue the city, and guess where money comes from for the city? From you.
I would suggest that a model that you might consider is Carmel, California. Okay. They don't have a very big police force, but they make it very uncomfortable for homeless to be in Carmel, California.
Mhm.
Okay. And so you might call the city manager of Carmel and the mayor to just determine what they do, because they
Sure.
cleaned up their homeless problem.
Yes, sir.
It appears that the city spent a lot of money and time trying to help people get around, like with the Wayfair signs and all that stuff. But can you tell me why none of the overhead signs have the block number on them? If you
What
go down
overhead?
the street, the notable street signs all have a block number, you know, on the corner, like 3800 block is up this way. But when you're driving around and you're trying to figure out where you're at, not one of the overhead street signs has a block number on it. So you don't know whether if you turn right it's the 2800 block, or if you turn left it's the 2700 block.
I don't have a clue.
I guess there's certain standards that that apply with regards to street signs and things like that. It's frankly the first time I've heard that request.
Yeah.
So we haven't got a lot of folks out there that have requested that type of thing. If we're going to spend city resources, we need to make sure that it's gonna serve the residents wisely and appropriately. So if others feel that that's something that the city should pursue, we're all ears.
Jim.
Regarding that, are you talking about going down Highway 95?
No, I'm talking within the city limits. When you go up McCullough, you go down Lake Havasu Avenue, there's not one of those overhead signs that has a number on it.
Yeah.
Street corner signs, he's talking.
Yeah, the street corner signs. I can't really explain it other than to say usually our streets are so short. You know, they. But I can attest to the fact when first time I ever came to Havasu to see my uncle, he told me, come down 95, which didn't look like it does today. It was not much of a Highway 95. Make a left on Acoma and a left on Southwind. Well, he forgot that there's two ends of Acoma that hit 95. So I made a left at the north end, and I'm like, where the heck is Southwind? I can't find it. So, but having said that, at least it does say north and south Tacoma. He just didn't tell me there was a north and south. Chuck.
Yeah, well, an answer to his question too is a lot of people are using their phones as directions and stuff anymore to tell them which way to go. They just plug in an address. But on that homeless thing, you know, Santa Ana, Orange County cleaned out that Santa Ana River. 300 to 500 people. And the courts ruled that Orange County and all of the cities had to put all those people up in hotels and until they found the permanent shelters, which was a huge cost for them, and that just to clean the homeless out of that Santa Ana River.
Yeah, well, let me be clear. When we get complaints about encampments, we do something about it. We got quite a few complaints about under the Pima Wash downtown, and the moment we received pictures, etc., we dealt with it. We try to do it in a humane way. We let them know that on a certain date, everything's going to be cleaned out. So if they want to keep their belongings, they need to move on. And we do clean it out. A lot of times we got to come back and do it again. Yes, sir.
What about the panhandlers I see standing on the corners? I came out of the Seattle area, and you don't get a freeway off ramp without someone standing out there with their sign that ends God bless. So, and it hasn't been here about 7-8 months now. I didn't see it when I first got here. Now I'm seeing panhandlers standing along corners of Highway 95. Is there any rulings on that kind of thing?
Well, most of the time I see them at the mall or and then mall's private property. That's up to them. And then I see them at 40. I haven't seen too many here. I'm sure there have been some, but when it comes to private property, that's up to them. David.
If I can just follow up on that, the Supreme Court's already ruled on that. That's their First Amendment right. As long as they're on public property, they have the First Amendment right to say whatever they want. And writing on a sign, there is the freedom of expression. They can say whatever they want. You cannot go out there without violating their civil rights.
But if they're on the corner of like out at the J.C. Penney and out north end of town, right on the corner of 95.
Right.
Still considered private property, right?
That's private property. And if the people that own the property complain about it, then we can do something about it.
Correct.
The people that own the property have to say, we don't want them on our property. So now you have to go through the whole trespassing issue. So, it's been a big issue. We've dealt with this. I was a policeman for 30 years, and I worked on this process, dealing with homeless encampments. And it's a big issue. And every time the city passes an ordinance that says you can't do this, and they've done this nationwide, the ACLU comes in and files an injunction.
That's right.
So it would cost us a lot of money to defend it in court. So we have to remember, even though we don't like homeless in our town, they're still people, and they still have the same rights as the rest of us, whether or not they contribute to society.
And one of the things that you should understand is that Arizona is under the umbrella of the very liberal Ninth Circuit Court, Circuit. And with regard to the California cases, they've all gone up to the Ninth Circuit. The Ninth Circuit has ruled on those, okay? And so those rulings apply to us. And so, we need to understand what that Ninth Circuit has decided on appeal. And that's something that I'm quite sure that the mayor and the city manager have looked at or will look at.
Listen.
To a certain extent, the problem's going to be self-solving. That's going to start warming up. You're going to see fewer and fewer homeless out there in the corners, and we've been here 5 years. And during the winter months when it's cooler, they will be out panhandling, and I can't blame them. They're trying to figure out how to make a buck or make a living. Whether or not they deserve to their way or not, I'm not going to get into. But as the heat comes up, they get onto the rocks, and they don't want to sit out there in the street corner and bait, not even for $4 or $5. So they will change their location. You'll see fewer of them on the street corners. I will say, as an attendant, one of the difficulties we had in moving into Havasu was the street signs not having any numbers on them. It made an excellent game of poker trying to figure out where you were headed on what thing, especially when we bought a Chimawavy, because we've got Boulevard Street,
Sure.
Place, Circle, and so forth. So it takes time. What would be nice, if we could get them to do it, is the city maps and the map in the telephone books. If those just had street numbers on them, it would improve it tremendously to those of us who don't trust the online tracking, that know better about what their accuracy.
Well, in the words of a millennial, what's a phone book?
Yeah, right. You're absolutely true there.
Exactly.
And how do you read one would be the other one. I got only college degree.
Chuck.
On another subject, I see they tore down, or I haven't seen it, she told me, that they've taken part of that berm down over at, are they gonna pull the rest of that down pretty soon? Or are they gonna wait?
You're talking
till
about
they get ready to
Riviera?
cut in?
Well, yeah, pretty soon will be, probably by the end of the summer, Again, what they're trying to do is, while the road construction and whatnot is going on, make sure that we don't have every ATV and whatever being looky-loos in the way of all that very heavy construction work. So
She said something about they put a fence up on top of her.
I don't know. I haven't seen it.
Yeah, 'cause you can see through the fencing.
Yeah. What's that? It's just a snow fence. Yeah, so it will disappear. Yes, ma'am.
I'm new here. I live on Cherry Tree in Yonder with my husband.
Uh-huh.
And I know there's a lot of construction going up in the foothills,
Yep.
which is progress, I understand that. But I'm concerned that's the only way down from the foothills.
Correct.
And we get all the traffic because it's supposed to be 25-mile-an-hour speed. And nobody obeys it. So I was wondering, I hear rumors there's going to be another road at some point, but probably not for quite a while.
Not for quite a while. It's interesting about Cherry Tree. Actually, the speed limit should be 35.
I know that.
Yeah, because it's a boulevard, and as a courtesy, we changed it to 25. But coming down that hill, what I do is I put it in third gear, and so that my car can't go much past 30 if I just leave the accelerator off. But any kind of additional, because there's still several phases to go, and I believe it's the next phase where another row will connect further north. But if you're thinking of the bypass of 95 going around, that honestly is not going to happen.
I figured that. So I'm just wondering, because I do live there and I love it here.
Mhm.
Is there any way to petition for like speed bumps or something?
No.
No, you don't want to.
Okay.
Your neighbors would hate you.
Okay, is there any way to put patrols there occasionally and ticket just to
We do.
encourage?
We do. We put one of those electronic signs.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah. If you're curious, yes, my wife got a ticket. Because she wasn't paying attention and got a ticket. So, but yeah, we do ticket it. But I think a lot of it is that area had been basically the desert dead end at the end of, or butt up against the end of Cherry Tree. But that development's been on the board for a long, long, long time, and it's finally moving quite quickly. They're already on the second phase, and they'll be doing the third. And I think that's when they'll be adding another road north to have another way in or out. It'd be nice if we had more, but right now it doesn't call for it. Yes, sir.
What about other neighborhood streets? Another street that I live on, it's a freeway out there. I mean, I'm looking at this as a fundraiser for the city.
Well, we don't get much in the way of those fines.
You know, it's just-
Those go to the state.
Until you get fined.
Yeah. What street do you live on, if you don't mind?
Lawrence Dutchman.
Lost Dutchman, okay. Yeah. I mean, is that the street that you're concerned about, or is it a different street that you're
Well, my
concerned?
street and other streets, other neighborhood streets, and I'm not talking the boulevards or anything like that. I'm talking 25-mile-an-hour
Right.
residential streets.
Yeah. And, most people are going to probably go 30, 32.
35, 40. 40.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's wild.
Well, all we can do is continually patrol. I guess I could use this as a plug for 409 to make sure that we have all the public safety we need to be able to deal with. But as you know, speeding is one of those things where unless an officer is right there, there's not a whole lot we can do. I've had the same thing on, people say, we need a law on Jake brakes. I don't want to hear the Jake brakes from big trucks. We can make a law, but unless the officer hears it, it's kind of a useless law. And I'm not saying that speeding is a useless law, because it isn't. But we just can't be everywhere. But if you've got a concern about a particular street where you think it's really excessive, we can we'll ask our police department to put one of those, your speed is kind of thing. That typically slows them down until the sign's gone. But it's a reminder.
How many patrolmen do we have on patrol now? Still 4 with 1 roving sergeant?
What's that?
How many policemen do we have on at a time now? Is it 4 with a roving sergeant?
Oh, way more than that.
Way more than that.
It's way more than that.
It's on each shift, yeah. It's talking each shift. How many on a shift patrolling? It's quite a few.
6, that was my understanding. So, each shift.
On each shift, yes.
Yeah.
Mayor, on the,
Yes.
I see that Jamaica's now having sand and oil down. Are they going to let us know when streets are going to be done so that I can't take my car, my hot rod down the road? With the sand and all that stuff going.
I'll let you answer this question.
Thank you, Mayor. So we are doing some chip seal of the streets in the city right now. If you reside on a street that we are going to do the improvements on, then we're putting up notifications to heads up in terms of there's going to be some equipment and rocks on your street to that particular day. So that's what we're doing right now. We did put out a press release talking about the timing of our chip seal and then again some isolated notifications if we reside on that street. So we'll be doing it for the next couple of weeks, and it's once a year we go out there and improve our streets through this practice.
There is some good news, by the way, on streets. At least we hope it's going to be good news.
Industrial?
Now maybe. Actually, what happened was a bill got passed in the legislature. I've told you many times that for the last 15, 16 years, the state of Arizona has swept our highway user revenue funds, also known as HERF. They've swept those to a tune of about $1.5 billion over the last 15 or 16 years. A bill was passed in the legislature and the governor signed it that allows the Arizona Department of Transportation director to set a fee on vehicle license that would then directly pay for DPS, and they won't have the ability to sweep our money any longer. That's the good news. The bad news is your vehicle tax is likely to go up about $18. So, but the other part of good news is electrical vehicles, which basically is paid in virtually nothing toward the improvement of roads, will be paying pretty much what the rest of us pay. So we believe that's going to be about somewhere between $300,000 and $400,000 annually to Lake Havasu City to help us improve our roads, which before was taken away from us, and we were having to supplement it with sales tax money, which is not what we should have to do. Chuck.
One suggestion on those, the electronic signs we put out for the speed and that, if they would just add a little piece up there with removable numbers and that, and put a thing up there that says, fine for speeding, and then put the fine there.
Can find out. I don't know if we can do it or not, but
It's a good suggestion.
it's a good suggestion.
Minimum fine, you got to have a minimum.
Minimum fine, $1 million. Everybody's going to be going 12.
Whatever our code is, that might stop a few people from.
Sure.
Oh hell, it might. It's going to cost me like $400 or something like that if I get caught speeding down the street.
Yes, sir.
This is just kind of an update to a question I asked you about a year ago regarding chip sealing on cul-de-sacs, okay?
Yep.
And your comment was it wasn't a good idea because it all gets torn up and whatever. And you're absolutely totally right. Is that absolute waste of money. It's like living in front of the Exxon Valdez, and you can grow rocks out there. It's a shame. Where right around the corner they did a slurry seal on a cul-de-sac, and it's like Jellystone Park. So I don't understand why I got screwed and the other guys got the good deal. Okay.
Well, we had your address.
If you complain, let's do it.
Oh, that took care of that.
Obviously, you're not running for re-election.
Boy, we know where that goes. Bye, Mayor.
Well, and again on the streets, because a lot of people ask us, why did you pick this street or that? We do it based on a rotational basis. We measure the quality of the street, and when it gets to a certain lower number, that's when it's time to do chip seal.
It was far better before it was chip sealed than after it was chip sealed. All the cracks are back.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, it was a waste. You look at the money you could have saved on your Prop 409. You could have used that for a police officer or something.
Well, first of all, eventually, all cul-de-sacs will no longer be subject to chip seal, but you actually save money by us chip sealing streets, because to mill and replace is incredibly expensive.
5%.
What's that?
Chip sealing is about 5% of the cost of a street reconstruction, so it's substantial.
But how does chip sealing compare versus the seal coat that they put on other cul-de-sacs that's just beautiful and has lasted within a week? This local cul-de-sac was seal coated, and it still looked brand new. The same trash trucks, the same UPS trucks, the same everything drive on it, and it's gorgeous.
Is it maybe a slurry seal or something along those lines that was
Yeah.
applied? Yeah, we can take a look at it. I mean, obviously we're going through and we can't do all 420 some miles of roads and streets all at the same time. As the mayor alluded to, there's a rotational basis each year. We take a chunk of that and apply our attention and resources towards that, and then the following year we take the next chunk. And I think we're it takes about 9 years to go through the city, and with as far as maintenance and the chip seal and slurry seals. So where are you at in terms of?
Lodestar Court.
I'm sorry.
Lodestar.
Okay. Yeah, we'll take a look at it in terms of where we're at with that rotation, and then.
Well, it was just a year ago it was done, but it didn't last. It didn't last 6 months. That doesn't sound like a good investment.
No, it doesn't. Yeah, we'll take a look at that. Okay.
Yet you look at Carroll Lane, which is right around the corner, and within a week they have slurry sealed theirs. You go look at it and see how nice it looks.
Mr. Castle.
It was just last year that we came to the realization that chip sealing the cul-de-sacs didn't need a slurry because of all of the turning movements on top of the raw chip. But that just started last year. And that's the one down the street was probably one of the first ones that we did, where the city does slurry the cul-de-sacs, and eventually all of the cul-de-sacs will be slurried as part of that program. Just because we recognize it's happening.
Other questions? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
More of a comment than anything else.
Sure.
About a year ago, I was complaining about Chemehuevi Boulevard needing some work because we got a 4-inch gap between the columns or layers of asphalt. Well, it was about a week later, and you folks came in and chip sealed for me. I was figuring it was going to be in the fall, but we lucked out. It worked beautifully. I can't complain.
Mm-hmm.
Those gaps are just now starting to open up again. So it lasted a full year and at 5% cost. You know, I'll take it. And it's still not bad enough to require chip again. It can probably go another year before it needs another chip. So there is, at least those of us on boulevards, it works out pretty well, and I think it's a pretty good deal in the long run. Because to get in and get out quick, it's done fast. Yeah, it's a little aggravating when it happens, but it lasts a long time. So, and figuring, you know, we're in Havasu. So, all in all, I'd say it's a good deal. It's kind of like the trash can issue. I love the new trash can, so if somebody's got to be seeing me, I'll be happy to adjust it.
Other questions?
Mayor, you know, we talked about before about striping. Can we buy better paint so that the paint will stay on the highway? I mean, you spray and then all of a sudden, about a month later, it's gone.
Well, we buy the paint through
Or the cheap paint.
we buy through a state contract. We actually we piggyback on a state contract for that paint. So because it's again, we are required to accept the lowest bid possible, and that's what we and that state contract is it. Now, are you talking about our roads or 95?
No, I'm talking about our streets.
Okay.
I'm
Yeah, because
talking about
we're
just
painting
lines
roads
and-
right now.
Yeah, I know. Every time you paint, like say for instance, Palo Verde South and Homa, you put the white lines on there, and then a couple of months or 6 months down the line, it's gone again. I mean, there's no.
Yeah,
The paint is. I mean, if you look at some of the roads in some of the other cities, they paint and they last a long time. So I don't know if they're using a different type of brand of paint that will adhere to the road and.
We're pretty much using all the same state contract. And again, I would imagine cities in Arizona that are cooler than ours, yeah, that paint's going to last a lot longer.
Yeah,
But at 115 degrees, there isn't much that lasts, including us. Yes, sir.
Does the police chief ever show up at your get-togethers?
Yeah, we can always ask him to do that. Yeah, he has in the past when I've asked, and maybe the next one we'll ask him to be here. Great idea. June.
Yes, regarding these brochures that Coachman and David Lake passed out,
Uh-huh.
would it be possible that it could be mailed out to all the residents? Is this, well, this is a little too, I guess you could hold it and put it in their water bill, but this is very important.
Well, the people that would do that would not be the city. Believe it or not, while I can advocate for Prop 409 as an elected official, employees cannot. All they can do is educate what 409 is all about, but they can't advocate one way or the other. There's a political action committee that actually made those, so we couldn't utilize city services to get those out. What we're trying to do is talk to as many groups as possible. We've already had one town hall. We plan to have one or two more. Social media, there's going to be a big blitz in the newspaper, a big insert, probably 12 pages. We're just trying to get the word out the best we can. So, social media, Facebook, whatever. It's one of those where it'd be really nice if we could, in 2 or 3 sentences, explain why it's important. But unfortunately, it requires so much more than that, because you say the word expenditure limitation or permanent base adjustment, and it's like, well, what the heck is that? And then next thing you know, it's a long explanation. But we're trying to do it succinctly. What you're going to see popping up in businesses throughout town is a banner that basically says a little bit about their business, and that they're fully invested in Lake Havasu City. They're 100% Havasu, and please vote yes on 409. And that's going to be in places like Juicy's and College Street and Havasu Fitness, accounting and offices all throughout the city. We were thrilled by the response we got in terms of asking businesses if they could support this. We've been thrilled. Yes, sir.
I'm just curious, is there any organizations that would actually be against this?
Organizations, no. How do I put it? A viewpoint that I don't want you to spend money on anything is against, would be against it. I mean, I've had people say, I don't want parks. I don't want parks. I don't use them. I don't want them. So why should I give you money to spend more? And my response is, well, first of all, you're going to give me the same amount of money whether or not we build another park or not, because it doesn't limit revenues. It's not a tax. But that's really the attitude is, you know, just trying to educate people that this has nothing to do with their taxes. It has really to just keep Havasu moving in the right direction.
How much money does the city take in through taxes that it can't spend on an annual basis because of the limitation?
Well, right now we have over $30 million just in general fund reserves. We've been building that up over time, even through the Great Recession. And we earmarked it to improve some parks and add to public safety and whatnot, but can't do it. Here's a great example. Last year, we wanted to make a payment toward the public safety retirement system because the unfunded liability was growing. So we wanted to make a $12 million one-time payment to that to help with that situation. That counts against us. So to do it, we literally went out, borrowed $12 million, paid it back in less than a year at a cost of $400,000 because of this rule.
What kind of interest are we getting on that?
That at the time was about 2%. Now it's starting to inch up to 3.5%. Yeah. So, you know, it's just crazy that you can't make a payment to your retirement system that's required by law, by the way, and say, but if you go over the expenditure limitation, we're going to take $2.5 million away from you.
Update.
Sure.
On 95 and Tacoma streets.
Kiowa?
Kiowa, sorry.
Go ahead.
So we talked about in the past the phase 2 of those projects, the Kiowa 95 area in front of the Hobby Lobby, new Starbucks, and so forth. We've been talking about it as our most dangerous stretch of road here in Lake Havasu City, and the need for some improvements are going to take place. Ideally, what we want to see is a median that runs up from up to Palo Verde, and a new stoplight that would be in place to control some of the traffic, so we lessen the amount of accidents that occur in that area. And those accidents are growing. You're seeing construction over there too. We have a new little strip mall that's going up in that area, so the traffic counts are not going to go down anytime soon. Volume is going to increase. Accidents are going to increase, so it's an important project for us. It's also important for the city to maximize the resources that we receive from ADOT for them to construct improvements on their facility, on their road. We found out about 2-3 weeks ago that ADOT denied our grant application, if you will, for phase 2 of that project, which would include the stoplight for that area. So it was a bit of a blow to us as we were trying to contribute some dollars from the city, and our MPO was trying to contribute some dollars for those types of improvements. Doesn't mean that these improvements are not going to take place. It just means that we need to try again to bring some dollars in from ADOT for that area. But phase 1 of that project is still moving forward in terms of additional right turn lanes and some median that will help in the area directly close to the Kiowa intersection. And then we'll be working with ADOT on trying to identify additional dollars or grants or dollars for the MPO or otherwise for us to improve that area. But we were very, very hopeful that we're going to get some ADOT funding and we were assured that we had a very, very good shot at some of those dollars to the point where we were able to talk about it with the public. And then again, we just found out just a couple weeks ago that other projects in the state ranked as a higher priority than this one, unfortunately.
But paving is the one I was concerned about.
Paving on
95.
Paving on 95. It's an ADOT facility. It's an ADOT road. These are things that I've had conversations with ADOT through their district engineer or otherwise, and talking about the importance of 95. So the whole facility, we hear lots of comments in terms of maintenance. We hear lots of comments in terms of the age and durability of the highway. But every 20 years, they're supposed to come back and reconstruct these highways. We're coming up a couple years away from 20 years out.
Right.
So, but we're not seeing those dollars in the ADOT budget just yet. So rest assured, every conversation I'm having with ADOT is a little bit of a reminder that that's something that's important to the community. So.
Yeah, especially a community has one way in and one way out.
Yeah, exactly.
Chuck?
Yeah, that was one of the questions I was gonna ask about that building that was going in there. Is that going to, where they're putting that in there, is that going to impede where they want to put the signal between that and Staples? Where they want to put the signal in there? Is it going that far north? And the other thing I was going to ask, if we do pass this 409 and get more expenditure limits, are they possibly thinking about reopening the fire station at the airport? Instead of depending on Desert Hills, with that jet crash the other day.
Answering your last question first, because it's a shorter answer. It's already open. We already operate out of that fire station out of the airport. So it's fully manned, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and so that's something that we have right now.
So it was open. So they called Desert Hills.
So we have Desert Hills is a great partner for Lake Havasu City. So we utilize them and for mutual aid agreements. So when something happens here in the community, they're there to help us out, and we reciprocate. Yeah. So when they run into issues, we help them out. So it's not about which boundary we reside in. It's about trying to get to the scene as quickly as possible to impact it positively.
Well, I understand mutual aid agreements.
Sure.
Was it staffed at the time of the jet accident?
Yeah. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
They called them and Desert Hills.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what about the signal where they're putting those buildings in? That?
So we got the buildings going in. We've thought ahead in terms of where we're at, those plans, and those go through the city review and so forth, and we have discussions with ADOT based on those plans. So all these things, have been looked at, and it doesn't compromise our ability or the ADOT's ability to install a signal in that area.
So they don't know it's just going to be just one business, or it's going to be like several that they don't know anything about?
It's a small shell building right now. I know that they've announced a Verizon wireless store is going to go in there. Again, heavy traffic type of business, and some type of a fast food restaurant's going to go in that same building. We don't know which one it's going to be just yet. So.
Maybe we'll get a Wendy's here.
There was a conversation about one going up south of town. So at the next 12 months or so. I don't know. I don't know exactly where it's going to be, but there were some conversations taking place. I probably shouldn't announce these things in case they go south, because then I'll be playing for that one. So.
What's going into that Staples Food City? Do you have an idea?
Yeah, that's the Verizon store. That little construction taking place right now with the pad.
Yeah.
It's a shell building with a little strip mall there.
Yeah.
That's going to be the Verizon store, and then some fast food restaurant that has yet to be announced.
Is Verizon moving out of their location and going there? Is that what they're doing?
You have to ask them. That I'm not sure of. Yeah.
Have you heard anything new about Hastings? What's happening with that place there?
Still for sale.
Yeah.
I know, it's still for sale. I know Smart Final wanted to go there.
Correct.
But they had some issues, so I don't know if you knew anything else going on.
I don't have an update.
Yeah. Boy, they'd have.
Do you have it?
What about where Dunkin' Donuts is?
What about it?
Yeah,
It's where Dunkin' Donuts is going to go in. What's that?
Anybody besides them?
I haven't heard anything.
I haven't heard anything on that. So yeah, a lot of times these businesses they wait to the end to pull their permit and before the inspection, so that they wait for the perfect window of opportunity for market and their resources to make the move. So we sit back and wait for these things to happen sometimes. But yeah, no, Dunkin' Donuts. It looks like it's moving forward. As far as the rest of that building, we'll wait and see, I guess.
Do we know when opening day at Dunkin' will be?
No.
I was going to say,
Somebody's
that's the
excited.
police department.
The Chief Joe will definitely be here next week or next month.
Krispy Kreme is my switch.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I just want to make a clarification on this flyer. This flyer is not from the city. This,
Right.
Lake Havasu did not put this out. There's a pack of local citizens that are concerned about this issue. So their pack is called 100% Havasu. They're the ones that made this. They're the ones that are putting everything together. They gave these to me so I can hand them out to you. So, but it's not a city issue.
If I hit you up for more of these brochures,
They
Dave,
do, and it's listed right in here.
Okay, great.
Let's see, where is it?
Service.
Oh, there it is.
Service.
Yes, prop409.com.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
good, I'll check it out. I'd go door to door.
And he was wondering if he could get some more brochures.
Absolutely.
I'll go door to door and hand them out if necessary.
All right. Well, I know where you live. I'll give it to you.
This I want done.
Other questions?
Will you be at Veterans Court today?
I won't. I'll be on my way
Oh, that's right, you're going.
because I'm headed to London.
Okay.
I'll be there.
But speaking of Veterans Court, we're trying to get a Veterans Court in the West Valley in the Phoenix area, and the former Commandant of a Detachment 767, Jerry Schaller, has been trying for years. I guess they had a a conference, seminar, whatever you want to call it. Judge Kalali went down there and every mayor and city council member was invited. Unfortunately, virtually nobody showed up.
That's right.
One council member, that was it. So I sent out a personal email yesterday inviting all of those mayors with an explanation of what Veterans Treatment Courts are all about and why it's important in their community. I invited them to our July 13th graduation. Haven't heard from anybody yet, but I'm hoping that they show. I offered them lunch.
That's right. And cake.
Well, and cake.
And music?
And no
No,
music.
there's no music.
Don't do that.
But the only thing is that, are you gonna have on July 13th, you're gonna have the full council be present at the ceremony?
That's up to the council. I can't require them
I
to
know
be
David
there.
Lane goes by.
Yeah, David's always there. Donna is typically
Yeah, Don
there.
goes there too.
Yeah, Cal is often there. But we plan to be there. We also have the people that we got the grants from, the $900,000 grant. They're going to be at that graduation as well as our VRT meeting on July 11th.
That's right.
So
Should be a packed house.
it will be a packed house. Our Veterans Treatment Court, for those of you who don't know, has been an incredible success in Lake Havasu City. It's considered the gold standard nationally for rural treatment courts for veterans. It's just been unbelievable what we have a mentor sitting here, and we have what we call a veteran resource team. It's all the various veterans groups and anyone interested in trying to help our veterans that have found their way into the court system. And it's we meet once a month, and we talk about different ways that we can be more helpful, events to educate our veterans, all kinds of different things. And I can tell you that the veterans that go through this program and successfully graduate, it's night and day from the day they went in to the day they come out. And I've had so many of them say, if it wasn't for this program, I'm not sure where I'd be other than in jail. And I've had others say, this program changed my life, saved my life. We've got now over 100 graduates. And to even go to maybe some numbers on how successful, when somebody goes into the court system, typically there's a 75 to 80% chance they're going to be back in the court system. At our Veterans Treatment Court, it is less than 5%. They go through the program, they're successful, unlikely to come back. And so I give our veteran resource team an incredible amount of credit. Judge Kalali is the right guy for this program. He's a veteran himself. And then his staff of Jennifer and Colleen, they're amazing. They're absolutely amazing. Other questions? Yes, sir.
In regard to our desert storm, how did the city have a good reaction to that this year? Small complaints?
I didn't get, other than the unfortunate accident that occurred, it seemed to be another very successful.
The city puts a lot of time and effort into that, but they're releasing all the things
We do.
necessary for that, so.
We do. Yeah, it's always a very popular event, as you know. Anytime you can go see 2 miles of $1 million boats, it's kind of fun. That's as close as I'll ever get to one of those. But it's been successful, and they'll be back. It's just we had an unfortunate accident. Lost good people. One of them I knew very well. Any other questions, Chuck?
I don't know how many people watch the council meeting or go to the council meeting, but are we ahead of our tax revenue? Because the city manager talks about it, at the council meetings and that, and we hear it there, but are we ahead of our tax revenue? I was talking
Our
to
projections?
Jim Southsider, the head of the Marine Association, the other day, and he said at that boat show, they sold 3 times more boats at that boat show than they have over the last 3 years.
Yeah, we are. I look at the sales tax revenues. We have other revenues that come in from the state, and various fees and permits and whatnot. But just looking at sales tax, which is a huge component of our revenue, we are ahead of last year and ahead of budget. So, roughly, believe it or not, roughly 30% of our sales tax, retail sales tax, comes from automobiles and parts. So keep buying cars. Check.
The other question I had was, is the city prohibited from applying to the federal government for grants? Because you said that we lost the one from the state, the DOT, and that are we prohibited from applying for transportation funds from the federal government for grants? Or do they just divvy it out to the state and the state gives it to whoever they want?
Generally speaking, that's the way it occurs. There are other grants, like I think Tiger grants and that sort of thing, but it wouldn't apply to this kind of project. So
safety, it's a really bad safety issue.
Well, we get some of that through the MPO, so I'll let Jess explain a little bit better.
As far as are we restricted for applying for federal funds? I hope not. We're looking for every single dollar that we can get to bring into Havasu, whether it's through the state or through the feds. There's different programs that pop up from time to time that we go for. Usually they're looking for some shovel ready projects. Every time we hear the infrastructure bill being discussed in DC, our ears are wide open to see if we can take advantage of some of those opportunities. But as the mayor alluded to, most of these funds come through the federal highways, through DC, and then are administered and just distributed by ADOT. So then we apply for those funds, and then through ADOT. The one caveat with some of these the federal dollars that come in is that we have to then we're held to a higher standard in terms of NEPA and environmental clearances and studies and all that, and that's generally about a 20 to 30% increase on every project. So we have to take that into consideration when we're applying for those projects as well too. They do come with strings attached.
Bacon Davis wages.
Bacon Davis wages.
Like they have the bypass. We really don't need it, because ADOT's got to pay for that, all that thing. Or is it the MTA?
Well, it'd be you'd be talking about the bypass that might.
No, the center divider and everything down.
Oh, the median?
95.
Sure.
In that.
Just like the city, we collect resources and funds and apply for grants and from various different sources. ADOT does the same thing. So they have a variety of different ways that they raise dollars from us as taxpayers, from us as drivers on the roads, and then they obviously collect dollars from through the federal government as well too. So then they use those dollars for those types of purposes. So it's there's a lot to it. There's a lot to it. Does that help?
Yep.
Any update on the second bridge?
Yeah, none.
Oh, yours, Mayor.
Yep. The fact of the matter is, it's probably, I don't know how many years away. Until such time that we can find a developer that would be interested in building it and putting a toll on it, it's going to be a ways. The city spent $3.7 million for the piece of land, state land on the island, to land the bridge on it. But for that bridge to actually be successful as a toll bridge, there's got to be a better connector to Highway 95, or why would you use it? Because right now, you think about how we get on the London Bridge, we have to wind around off the freeway, etc. We'd like not to do that, but you know, as I've said before the Great Recession, we had interest in developers building that, and since we haven't heard a peep. But I'm a firm believer it has to get done eventually. It's just got to. Yes, sir.
The issue was brought up about 30 years ago. A petition was made out with the old museum out there on the island was tore down, and BLM was contacted. It took about 3 years to clear to get the land on this side of the channel. And Super 8, where it's at now, or Hotel 6, I guess it is, that was going to be purchased for an access way to get around it. Unfortunately, it got money talks, got sold. But so it was moved down by the Holiday Inn, was an access way where the ditch is, to make that a one-way. Because I was on the board to do that. We did a traffic control setting, make that a one-way through, and go across the island, come across the bridge back on mainland, or go around in uptown. All in traffic control is what it was. And it would alleviate a lot of the jamming you have down there now when you have an event at the beach.
Right.
Because you make it one-way instead of two ways.
Well, I think there will be some traffic relief, quite honestly, when the new state park opens up on the south side as well. Because all of our launch ramps are out on the north end here, or on the island. So you'll see some relief. But, eventually another bridge needs to be constructed. I don't think there's any doubt about that. Chuck.
Yeah, the other thing, there was a thing in the paper, this guy put an editorial in about that his state park pass is not going to work there. I don't know if you've heard that or...
No, that's correct.
True? Okay.
That's correct. And here's why. That state park here in Lake Havasu City will be operated by a concessionaire for the next 40 years, I believe it is. And the reason they've got to do a separate pass is that concessionaire is the one that is building that entire park, spending tens of millions of dollars.
Yeah.
They don't know how to separate it. If they said, okay, one pass, how does he or she get their money back other than getting back through a separate state pass? So, because otherwise it's just not going to work. But so that was the agreement, that they will build it, they'll put in the tens of millions of dollars, they will be paying Arizona State Park a concessionaire fee on an annual basis, but they have to have the ability to get their money back over the next 40 years. So that's why there will be a separate annual pass just for that state park.
Now, you have Cattail Cove, that's run by concessionaires in that, but yet your state power pass works down there.
I don't think there is a concessionaire there. There's no concessionaire there.
Cattail Cove?
Sandport used to be a concessionaire and they closed that up.
Yeah, the state took it back over.
Yeah, but that wasn't Cattail Cove, that was Sand Point.
That was Sandpoint, which is
Sandpoint.
different.
Sample.
Yeah,
State owned control that.
right. So yes, there. I mean, that's the way it has to operate, because if they didn't make that agreement, there was not going to be another state park. I mean, quite frankly, during the recession, Arizona State Parks was looking for ways to make many of their parks concessionaire agreements. You know, there was going to be some that wouldn't be, but so this is their first foray into that, and I think it's going to work. I really do.
That's what I've heard, that I guess, when they're going to combine Cattail Cove and Sandpoint into one big thing, but they were going to get a concessionaire in there to run the whole.
I don't think they are. State Parks doesn't want another concessionaire.
Another one?
They do not want another one. But and let's say that there was, that's a very different equation, because if I bring in a concessionaire on an existing state park, so what? I'm just running it. I'll pay so much, whatever. I didn't put in $10 million to build the park. That's a very different equation.
Oh, yeah.
5 minutes.
5 more minutes. Any last questions? Well, thank you all very much for being here. Well, I do appreciate it. Our next one is in June at Bagel Bin. June.
Donut Day.
Donut Day.
They actually have donuts there?
Yeah. And in July we will go dark, just because of the July 4th holiday, etc. But the next one is a June 1. June 1st at Bagel Bin at 7:30. Thank you all for being here. Appreciate it.